Growing up, I never thought I'd be the kind of person who had a best friend people envy. You know the type, those girls who had someone by their side in every school hallway, someone who always saved them a seat at lunch, someone who answered their texts at midnight without hesitation. That was me and Hannah. From the moment we met in second grade, it was like the universe had decided we were supposed to find each other. I still remember the first day. She had just moved to town, sitting alone at the corner table in the cafeteria, pushing her spaghetti around with her fork. I wasn't usually brave enough to approach new people, but something about her, the way her big brown eyes darted around nervously, made me want to sit down beside her. So I did. And just like that, we became inseparable. By middle school, everyone knew us as the duo. Teachers joked about how they couldn't call on one of us without the other whispering the answer. Parents in the neighborhood admired how we looked out for each other. And honestly, I believed we would always be that way. We had sleepovers nearly every weekend, staying up late talking about the things only two 13-year-old girls could think were earth-shattering. The cute boy in science class, whether our parents were secretly plotting to ruin our lives, and our big dreams about getting out of our small town one day. She wanted to be a singer, and well, I didn't really know what I wanted yet. But I told her she'd make it, that I'd be in the front row at every concert. She swore I'd figure it out, that we'd both make it big somehow. It felt safe, that friendship. Like no matter what happened, bad grades, fights with parents, awkward crushes, we would always come back to each other. She used to say, "You're my forever person, my chosen sister." And I believed her, more than I believed anything else. But here's the thing about forever. Sometimes it ends before you even realize it's slipping away. Looking back, I can see the little cracks that started forming long before everything shattered. In 8th grade, when she made the cheer squad and I didn't, she started hanging around with the other girls more. She'd still invite me over, but sometimes it felt like I was just tagging along to her new world. By freshman year, she was one of those girls who floated through the hallways like she owned them, hair perfectly curled, outfits that looked straight out of a magazine, laughter always echoing behind her. Me? I was the quiet one. The one teachers described as bright but reserved. I didn't have the same kind of spotlight she did, and honestly, I didn't want it. I was fine being in the shadows, as long as I had her. And for the most part, I did. Even as her circle grew, she always came back to me. We'd still have our late night talks, our movie marathons, our whispered secrets that felt too fragile to share with anyone else. Whenever I got nervous that she was slipping away, she'd squeeze my hand and say, "You're my best friend. Nothing will ever change that. Not boys, not cheer, not anything." I clung to those words like they were a lifeline. Because the truth is, I didn't have anyone else. My family wasn't the kind you opened up to. My mom worked long shifts at the hospital, my dad had moved out years ago, and my little brother barely noticed if I was around or not. At school, I floated somewhere between invisible and that girl who's always with Hannah. So yeah, she was everything to me. My anchor, my safe place, my proof that I mattered. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams, was that the very person I trusted with my entire world would be the one to destroy it. It all started the night I told her my biggest secret, the one I had never shared with anyone else, the one that kept me awake at night, twisting in my stomach like a knot I couldn't untangle. And at the time, when I whispered it to her in the dark, I thought she understood. I thought she meant it when she promised me, with tears in her eyes, "I'll never let anyone hurt you with this. I'll protect you. Always." But promises. Promises are fragile things. And hers shattered faster than I could have ever prepared myself for. Secrets are strange things. They live inside of you, pressing against your ribs, heavy and sharp, until you almost forget what it feels like to breathe without them. For years, I carried mine like a stone in my chest, pretending it didn't exist while it slowly wore me down. It wasn't the kind of secret that felt safe to keep, but it also wasn't the kind I thought anyone could understand. Not my mom, who barely had the time or energy to notice when I was falling apart. Not my brother, who was too young to grasp anything that complicated. And definitely not anyone at school, where rumors spread faster than wildfire and stuck to you like glue for the rest of your teenage years. So I swallowed it day after day until one night, it just spilled out. It was sophomore year. Hannah and I were having one of our usual sleepovers, lying on her bed in the glow of fairy lights, talking about nothing and everything. She was rambling about some boy on the football team who'd smiled at her in the hallway, and I laughed, pretending to be invested. But the whole time, my mind was elsewhere. My secret was clawing its way up my throat louder than anything else. I remember staring at the ceiling, my chest so tight I thought I might actually suffocate. And then, before I could stop myself, the words tumbled out. Hannah, there's something I need to tell you, but you can't tell anyone. Ever. She rolled over to face me, her expression soft and curious. Of course. You can tell me anything. And I believed her. God, I believed her. My voice shook as I told her about the thing that had happened months earlier. Something I hadn't asked for, something I hadn't deserved, but something that had changed me in ways I couldn't undo. It was messy and ugly, and even saying it out loud made me feel like I was breaking some kind of invisible rule. She listened quietly, her wide eyes shimmering with tears. When I finished, I couldn't even look at her. I was convinced she'd pull away, disgusted or worse, tell me it was somehow my fault. But instead, she took my hand. Her grip was warm and steady, her voice low but firm. You're not alone. I swear to you, you're not. I'll never tell anyone. This stays between us. The relief that crashed over me was almost unbearable. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I thought I had finally given my secret to someone who would keep it safe. And for a while, she did. In the weeks that followed, she acted like nothing had changed, but in the best way possible. She'd squeeze my hand in the hallways, check in with me when I looked tired, remind me to eat when stress made me forget. She was gentle, protective even. And I started to believe her promise that she really was my forever person. But then, something shifted. It was small at first. A sharp glance when I didn't laugh at one of her jokes. A sigh when I asked if she wanted to hang out and she already had plans with her cheer friends. A hesitation, like my presence was a weight she wasn't sure she wanted to carry anymore. I brushed it off. People grow, right? Friendships change. But she was still my best friend. She'd promised me that. Until one Friday night. There was a party, one of those typical high school parties thrown at someone's big empty house while their parents were away. I didn't want to go. Parties weren't my thing, and after everything I had told Hannah, I didn't feel comfortable being in a crowd of drunk, rowdy kids. But Hannah insisted. Come with me, she said. I don't want to go alone. So I went. For her. The house was packed, music blasting so loud it made my chest vibrate. Kids were dancing, laughing, spilling drinks everywhere. I tried to stick close to Hannah, but almost immediately she drifted toward the football team, her new circle. I stood by the wall clutching a soda and pretending not to feel out of place. That's when it happened. I heard my name. At first, I thought I imagined it. But then I caught a few phrases, whispered behind hands, followed by sharp, cruel laughter. My stomach dropped as I realized what they were saying. They knew. Not all the details, but enough. Enough to twist my secret into a cruel joke, something dirty to gossip about between sips of beer. My chest went cold, my ears ringing. And when I turned to find Hannah across the room, she was watching me. Not with shock, not with confusion, but with this strange, unreadable expression, like she knew exactly what I'd just overheard. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But all I could do was stand there, frozen, as the walls of trust I'd built around her crumbled to dust. That was the moment I realized something I didn't want to believe. The person I had trusted with my biggest secret was the same person who had let it slip. Maybe she hadn't told the whole school. Maybe she'd only said something to one person. But in high school, one person is all it takes. And from that night on, my life would never be the same. Because once a secret is out, you can't ever put it back in. The Monday after that party, walking into school felt like stepping onto a stage I hadn't auditioned for. It started in little ways. Whispers behind my back, conversations that went silent the second I entered a room, giggles that I knew weren't about the math homework or the weather. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. Maybe people were just being people. High school was full of drama, after all. But by lunchtime, I knew. I walked into the cafeteria, trays shaking in my hands, and every pair of eyes felt like they were on me. The table I usually sat at with Hannah was full, her, the cheer squad, some football players, and when I made my way over, she didn't even look up. I froze. My spot was right there, next to her, where I had sat every day since 7th grade. But her body angled away, her laughter just a little too loud, her attention fixed on everyone but me. I stood there for a second too long, waiting for her to notice, waiting for her to wave me over like always. But she didn't. Nobody did. So I turned, cheeks burning, and found an empty table in the corner. That was the first day I ate alone. The rumors spread fast after that. I don't even know how much of what people said was true to what I had confided in her, and how much was twisted, exaggerated, or just plain invented. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. She's so weird. I heard she begged him for it. No wonder she's so quiet, she's hiding something. She's lying for attention. I heard it all. Sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted, sometimes written on the bathroom stalls in sharp black marker. And through it all, Hannah said nothing. That's what hurt the most. Not even the rumors. Not even the way people looked at me like I was broken or dirty. It was her silence. Her distance. The girl who had promised me forever, who had promised to protect me, just vanished. Not physically, she was still there, sitting in class a few rows ahead of me, laughing in the hallways. But the bond we had built, the invisible thread that had tied us together for almost a decade, was gone. At night, I'd stare at my phone, scrolling through old texts. You're my person. I'll never let you down. It's you and me against the world. Words that now felt like lies, like promises she had never meant to keep. I tried to talk to her once. Cornered her by her locker, voice trembling as I whispered, "Why? Why would you tell?" Her face hardened, and for a moment I didn't even recognize her. She pulled her books against her chest and hissed, "I didn't tell anyone, okay? People talk. Don't blame me because you can't keep your life together." Then she slammed her locker shut and walked away. Her words cut deeper than the rumors ever could. Because they weren't whispered behind my back, they were aimed straight at me. After that, things only got worse. My grades slipped. I stopped raising my hand in class, stopped trying to sit with anyone at lunch. I'd sit in the library or the bathroom, anywhere I could avoid the stares and laughter. At home, Mom noticed something was wrong, but she didn't press. She was too tired, too busy, and honestly, I didn't know how to explain it to her. How could I tell her that the one person I trusted had turned me into a stranger in my own life? The worst part, though, wasn't the loneliness. It was the moments I still missed her. Even after everything, there were nights when my chest ached for the sound of her laugh, for the way she used to braid my hair while we talked about our dreams. I hated myself for it, but I still wanted my best friend back. But the Hannah I had loved, the one who'd held my hand and promised me I wasn't alone, was gone. In her place was someone colder, sharper, someone who smiled at me in hallways not with warmth, but with a smirk that felt like a reminder. I hold your life in my hands, and I already dropped it once. By winter, I had stopped hoping things would go back to the way they were. But I still didn't realize how much further it would all spiral. Because high school rumors don't just ruin reputations, they destroy identities. And soon, I would learn that Hannah wasn't just letting the whispers spread. She was feeding them. If whispers feel like cuts, then betrayal feels like a blade driven straight through your chest. By the time spring rolled around, The rumors weren't just whispers anymore. They were stories, loud, ugly, twisted versions of the truth that spread like wildfire. And somehow, no matter how much they mutated, my name was always attached. I kept my head down. I told myself if I just stayed quiet, if I just endured it, maybe people would get bored and move on. But high school doesn't work that way. The more you try to disappear, the more people notice. And Hannah, my Hannah, was right there in the center of it all. It wasn't obvious at first. She never outright said anything cruel to me in front of people. In fact, if you didn't know better, you'd think she was simply detached. Like we'd just grown apart naturally. But then I started hearing things I knew only she could have told. Little details from the night I had opened up to her. Words I had whispered in the dark, shaking, begging her to understand. And now, those words were public property. She made it up. She just wants attention. She actually liked it. The things people said about me weren't just cruel, they were poisonous. And the way they spread, like they had been rehearsed, like someone had fed them line by line. I knew. I knew in my gut. Hannah was behind it. I wanted to believe otherwise. I wanted to cling to the tiny shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't her. But deep down, I couldn't deny it anymore. She was the only one I had told. She was the only one who knew everything. And worst of all, she seemed to be thriving. She was more popular than ever, laughing in the cafeteria, walking hand in hand with her new boyfriend, being crowned sweetheart princess at the spring dance. People adored her. Teachers praised her. Parents invited her over for dinner, saying things like, "You're such a good influence on the other girls." Meanwhile, I was unraveling. My grades plummeted. I stopped showing up to half my classes, hiding in the library or wandering the hallways. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my chest heavy with the crushing weight of being unwanted, unloved, unprotected. The only person I had ever trusted had turned me into a pariah. But the worst moment came the day she decided to use my secret as her weapon. It was gym class. We were running laps, and I was already lagging behind when I heard her voice. Loud, clear, cutting through the air like a knife. I mean, who would even want her? She basically admitted she let it happen. That's not trauma. That's desperation. The group around her erupted in laughter. And even though she didn't say my name, every eye in that gym turned to me. My legs gave out. I stumbled, falling hard against the track, scraping my knees. But the sting in my skin was nothing compared to the burn in my chest, the humiliation that made my vision blur. I wanted to disappear. To vanish completely. Lying there on the ground, I realized something terrifying. Hannah hadn't just betrayed me. She had erased me. She had taken my story, my pain, and twisted it so badly that people no longer saw me as a person, they saw me as a punchline. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried until I couldn't anymore. My pillow was soaked, my throat raw. And in the silence that followed, I thought about what she had taken from me. Not just my secret. Not just my reputation. She had taken my trust, my sense of safety, my belief that someone in this world would always stand by me. And without that, I didn't know who I was anymore. I thought about texting her, begging her to stop, asking her why she was doing this. But I couldn't, because deep down, I already knew the answer. She wasn't my best friend anymore. She was my enemy. And the scariest part? She was winning. There's a strange thing that happens when you hit rock bottom. At first, it feels like you'll never get up again. Like you've been buried so deep that even if you screamed, no one would hear you. But then, after the tears dry and the exhaustion settles in, something else creeps in, something quiet, something steady. Survival. After that night, I collapsed on my bed, broken by the weight of Hannah's betrayal. I expected to wake up the next morning feeling the same, ashamed, unwanted, hollow. But instead, I felt numb. And in that numbness, there was clarity. I couldn't keep living this way. I couldn't keep letting her define me, control me, erase me. Because that's what she had done, wasn't it? She had taken my voice and twisted it into something unrecognizable. But it was my story, my pain. And maybe it was time I stopped letting her tell it for me. The turning point came in the most unexpected way. I was in English class, sitting in the back, doodling in the margins of my notebook, when Mr. Parker announced an upcoming project. Write a personal essay. Something true. Something that matters to you. Something you're afraid to say out loud. At first, my chest tightened. The idea of putting my truth on paper felt terrifying. What if someone found out? What if it made everything worse? But then, slowly, an idea began to take root. What if writing it down wasn't about them? What if it wasn't about Hannah or the rumors or the cruel laughter in the hallways? What if it was about me, finally letting my story breathe without shame? So I wrote. For the first time, I poured everything out. Not in whispers. Not in broken pieces. But in full sentences, raw and real. I wrote about the night that had changed me, the fear I carried, the way I had trusted someone who betrayed me. I wrote about the loneliness, the pain, the anger. And most importantly, I wrote about wanting to heal. When I handed it in, my hands were shaking. I expected Mr. Parker to give it a grade and move on. But a week later, he called me aside. His eyes were kind, his voice gentle. "This is powerful," he said. "You don't have to go through this alone. Have you ever thought about talking to someone?" And just like that, a door opened. He connected me with the school counselor. At first, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to sit in an office and pour my heart out to a stranger. But I forced myself to try. And to my surprise, it helped. She listened, not with judgment, not with pity, but with understanding. She told me that what happened wasn't my fault. She told me I deserved better. And for the first time in months, I started to believe it. I still saw Hannah every day. Still heard the whispers, still felt the sting of her betrayal. But little by little, the power she had over me began to fade. Because the truth is, Hannah wasn't stronger than me. She wasn't braver or smarter or more deserving. She was just louder. And I had let her voice drown out my own. But now, I was learning to speak again. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. There were still nights I cried myself to sleep. Still mornings I dreaded walking into school. But slowly, I found small sparks of light. A classmate who invited me to sit with her at lunch. A teacher who praised my essay in front of the class. My little brother leaving a note on my desk that said, "You're the strongest person I know." Piece by piece, I was building myself back up. And then, one afternoon, it happened. The confrontation I had been both dreading and craving. I was leaving school when Hannah cornered me by the lockers. She was smiling that perfect, practiced smile, but her eyes were sharp. "Why are you telling people lies about me?" she hissed. "Do you want to ruin my life?" I froze. For a second, the old me, the one who always wanted to please her, to keep the peace, almost apologized. Almost folded. But then, something inside me shifted. I stood taller, looked her straight in the eye, and I said, "I don't have to lie about you, Hannah. You did that all by yourself." Her face twisted, her smile faltering. For once, she didn't have a comeback. She just glared at me, muttered something under her breath, and stormed off. And as I watched her go, I realized something important. I didn't need her anymore. I didn't need her friendship, her approval, her empty promises. Because I had something she would never have. The strength to face the truth, to carry my pain and still keep moving forward. The rumors didn't vanish overnight. The whispers didn't magically stop. But I stopped letting them define me. I started finding my own voice, in writing, in counseling, in the small but genuine friendships I began to build. And slowly, the walls that had closed in on me started to crumble. Hannah, she faded. Her popularity peaked and then dipped, as it always does in high school. People moved on to new gossip, new scandals. She was just another face in the crowd. But me? I wasn't invisible anymore. I was someone who had survived betrayal, who had learned that forever isn't always forever, and that sometimes the people you trust the most will hurt you the worst. But that doesn't mean you stop trusting. It means you start trusting yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of forever that really matters.